Congratulations on the movie. Before we dig into it, I just want to sort of go and ask you what your earliest memories of seeing Christopher Reeve on screen were.
Well, for me, it was actually seeing it on its first release. I'm that old, as a 13-year-old kid. I'm trying to remember what cinema. It was either the Dominion, Tottenham Court Road, or the Odeon, Leicester Square. And I'd loved the Superman comics when I was very little. And, you know, seeing this film with all of the hype around it and this unknown actor who will make you believe that a man can fly, I just remember all of that, the posters, the trailers, and going to see it in a packed audience and the kind of feeling that incredible sort of pleasure of the whole audience enjoying the film. So that was my earliest memory.
Yeah.
Me, I'm a little bit younger, so actually I never catch the film in the cinemas. I saw it on TV. And I think that's one thing when we came to the story, which made me realize in talking to other people, a lot of people, even later on in life, actually saw the films on TV. And even if it was the full theatrical experience, I saw it in French, dubbed in French. But that's still one of the films that you would see, despite it was an American film. And, you know, French cinema has got plenty of great story and great films. But that's the thing, is that his legacy and the film was consumed all over the world in many different languages. So when we got to make the film, when we got approached to do the film, it was really exciting because we knew there would be audiences all over the world interested in it. We didn't know how much, actually.
Yeah. You approached to do the film. I mean, was it just an immediate yes? You understood that he would make a fascinating subject?
It was, but it's been sort of like 3 or 4 years since our previous film, Rising Phoenix. In that time, we've made a television series as exec producers and creators rather than directors. But we really take our time in picking our projects and think about them when we're approached to do something, or we come up with our own ideas. And this was sort of like just instant, because I think we understood that it was an important subject, that it was in some way connected to our previous work, but that would enable us to make something that was kind of like quite epic, but also quite intimate. And to make, you know, Ian said to me afterwards, you know, this is our chance to make a true Superman film, a real life Superman film. So, and that was very much how we embarked on it.
You were given sort of incredible access to the Reeve family archives. I mean, when diving into those materials for the first time, I mean, what were the things that stood out to you the most?
What stood out the most was actually how lucky we were to get that much archive, because on other project we didn't have that much. And it's, you know, in documentary is the backbone of a documentary, especially if it's a retrospective documentary, if the subject has gone and you're trying to cover. We knew we would obviously see loads of interviews. You know, you go on YouTube and you find loads of interviews with Chris, and actually even the children discovered interviews on YouTube they had never seen from their dad, you know, or they were too young at the time. But I think what was special as well is when we found out that Matthew Reeve had shot 2 films about his dad, and when he helped us tracking down the rushes and we digitized all of that, that was quite special, because we had boxes and boxes of tapes that came in the office, and one of our assistants and researchers sat and was digitizing them. And if you remember the old days before digital, you have to put the tape and you have to let it run for it to digitize. So we would just gather around the screen saying, like, oh my God, that looks amazing. And then we'll pass on different clips like that. And then I think the last thing is the fact that Chris had bought a camera when he left the UK and he left his first relationship to come to the US, and he was filming himself and sending sort of video messages back to the kids to try to keep in touch. And that video camera, he filmed everything. And then even when he had the accident, then I picked up the camera and the other children and friends and family. So that was really intimate footage and really show, you know, behind the curtain.
So, I mean, when working directly with the family, I mean, were you just given like the freedom to explore every single aspect of their lives, or were there still some sort of like barriers in place needed?
No barriers. I mean, I think the first thing that's really important to say is that you have to establish a sense of trust and, I would say, almost friendship with in this case with the 3 kids, that they're going to be in a position where they feel safe to talk and express their most intimate memories of their father on camera on one hand, but also say, look guys, we have all this archive, and it was so much archive. I mean, it was like just extraordinary mountains of boxes in the office. So, you know, but at the point that they'd given us that they'd expressed their trust, they left us to it. They said, we want you to make the film that you want to make, which is obviously, you know, music to our ears. We talked a lot with them about what that film was going to be, so they had a firm understanding of what direction we wanted to steer it in, and obviously they were on board for that. And when it came to the interviews, you know, there was nothing that was off. Well, how do you say nothing that was off the
Off limits?
Off limits. Yeah, they felt safe to really sort of like go to the darkest.
There's another
places.
element. There's no scandal about Christopher Reeve. So there's nothing that actually people could be a bit scared about touching. There's a lot of other actors. There's so many things. It's funny. People are more reticent to say yes to make documentaries about them.
It was, you basically just got every single sort of one of the actors in the film that you reached out to. There was nobody that said no.
No, I mean, again, the children, the three kids, Reeve kids, were very, very, very generous with their time, and they've really helped us. Because they were part, obviously, of Chris' life, they knew these people. They might be less in touch now, but they could just give us a sort of stamp of approval when we reach out. It wasn't like, no one ever said, is the family involved? Which we had that in the past, or who's involved in the project? If that person talk, I don't want to talk. There was none of that. And it's very refreshing because it warrants you the type of person Chris is and the type of person, you know, this movie will be about. You know, it won't be about the dark side. Yes, he's flawed, and the kids really wanted to show that. They say themselves, I'm not perfect. I've got my good days and bad days, and that makes us human and that makes us approachable. But yeah, I mean, everyone said yes. I mean, it was more about a time of finding time in their schedule, but everyone wanted to, you know, everyone we approached was keen on sharing their memories about their friend. They might be famous themselves, but it's not famous to famous. It's just their friend.
Yeah. We didn't want to put him on a pedestal, and we didn't want to make a red carpet film with every star that he'd ever met. So the people that we wanted in the film were there for a very specific reason. It wasn't just because it's Glenn Close or Susan Sarandon or Jeff Daniels. It was because they had a particular moment in their lives that we really wanted to capture. Because we felt it was important to the overarching story.
Yeah. The sections in the film that sort of cover the late 90s, his moving into directing. I mean, it showcases him trying to break new ground for depictions of disability on screen and actually getting that representation. And just watching it just felt to me like we were on the cusp of something, and it just progress for disability on screen just stalled. And I just wonder if the both of you feel the same.
We made a film about the Paralympic movement. I would argue you're completely right, and actually sports and the representation of great athletes, Paralympians, have helped more to the representation of disabled people than actually film. I totally agree with you. It's only within the last 5 to 10 years that you have, you know, you've got a great character, and I apologize, I can't remember the name of actor, in Sex Education, that TV series, where actually the character has got a proper arc for the actor himself to embrace, and is very present in the film. He's not a token gesture, and I think it's been really hard for the film industry to actually embrace that. You know, it's a funny thing, the film industry. You know, these films cost a lot of money, and there's a perception that if you don't make someone look perfectly beautiful and perfect, people are not going to identify, and I totally disagree with that. The vision of what is normal and perfection is so weird. We are all non-normal. We are all on the spectrum of some sort, or with some sort of mental, physical, emotional disability somehow. So I don't adhere to that. But yeah, I mean, he pushed the boundary, Chris. You know, he was one of the first time that people saw someone in that situation, in that condition, on stage. And because he was identified as Superman, which was indestructible, perfect man, good-looking, tall, and stuff like this, and then suddenly he's like this, and still trying to embrace life, surviving from the from the idea of killing himself and that, and embracing a new way of life was very inspiring, I think.
Yeah, and just touching on from that, I mean, you do cover the sort of controversial Super Bowl advert that the Reeve Foundation had depicting Christopher Reeve being able to walk again, and this idea that was controversial at the time about the idea of like looking for a cure for disability rather than just coping, you know, and living life to the fullest with it. Is that a discussion that you think warrants a full film on its own and couldn't just be done justice in just like a segment of one man's life story?
I mean, I really hope that we do, in that segment of the film, that we do sort of like more than touch on the issues and the offence that was caused by the Super Bowl ad. It wasn't made by the foundation, by the way. It was important to say. It was
very important to fact check me.
But nevertheless, it did cause a great deal of offence. At the same time, it was the absolute ultimate representation of the moonshot that Chris was aiming for. That he kind of like felt, well, you know, if somebody does have an accident and loses the power to walk or to breathe, then surely science can do something. So he was very determined on that, but perhaps to an extent that wasn't sensitive, and this is something that Dana really pointed out, that wasn't sensitive to people who didn't want to be fixed, who wanted to be able to live their lives and be accepted for who they are as people living with disabilities. And, you know, Dana then embraced that. And so in a sense, Chris's legacy is both galvanizing science and medicine, not just to look for cures, but also more effective treatments generally that will help people live better and have a better quality of life. And then on the other hand, Dana's emphasis on you know, helping caregivers as well as the person who has a disability. So I think, you know, I really hope that that's something we do cover. Is it worth a film all of its own? I mean, very possibly, yes. It would be interesting to explore that, but obviously within the confines of what we're doing. I hope we've done it justice.
Laurie says something, just to finish the point, in the coda at the end, that since his passing, all his legacy has helped people walk again. If you look back at that controversy, I think, you know, he's won the argument. Some people with the disability who acquire the disability have to accept it and start living with it, but that doesn't mean they don't want to improve a few things. So I think it's a very interesting argument, but there's no winner in the situation. But people who want to walk again, be my guest. They should try to fight for that. People who just want to live like they are and have a decent life like this, both things should be done.
Yeah. Well, guys, you've made an extraordinarily moving movie. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.